There's quite a bit of confusion about terms like agnosticism and atheism. And I think the cause of that problem, the cause of that confusion, is a blurring of the line between actual statements and beliefs about the statements. You know that certain statements are either true or false. There is a God or there isn't. That tautology is simply true. It's a tautology. That's why it's called a tautology. But that doesn't mean that one must therefore have a belief in either one of those statements. You have to have a belief that God exists or a belief that God doesn't exist. And that is where people get confused when it comes to terms like atheism and agnosticism. Atheism means that one does not hold the belief that there is a God. So one is either a theist or an atheist. It's as simple as that. One either holds the belief in a God, which would make one a theist, or one does not hold that belief, which would make one an atheist. That does not say anything about the belief or lack thereof that one might hold about the non-existence of a God. It makes no sense for an atheist to hold the belief that there is a God, because that is contradictory. But once one does not hold the belief in a God, and one therefore is an atheist, one still has the choice in either holding the belief that there is no God or rejecting that belief. Belief is just an absence of doubt. That's how I would characterize belief, an absence of doubt. A belief in a God means that one doesn't doubt that there is a God. I believe that the sun will rise tomorrow because I don't doubt that that will happen. When I look in my wallet, there's either going to be a 10 euro note inside or there isn't a 10 euro note inside. But I can't hold a belief about that because I haven't looked recently and I don't actually know. So if you say there is a 10 euro note in my wallet, I would have doubts about that. I wouldn't be sure. So I can't hold, therefore, the belief that I have a 10 euro note in my pocket. Equally, if you claim that I don't have a 10 euro note in my pocket, I can't believe that because I have doubts about it. I can't be sure. Maybe there is one. So I can't hold either belief. And that is what makes or breaks an agnostic. If one does not have any doubt that there is no God, then one is what would be called a positive atheist. If one does not hold that belief that there is no God, if one has doubts about that, one is an agnostic. But one already is an atheist, so that would make one an agnostic atheist. There's nothing strange about that. There's nothing contradictory about that. And I think that might be helpful in resolving this conflict. If somebody says to you they're an agnostic, they're not an atheist, they're confused. An agnostic, by definition, is an atheist. But if somebody says, I am an atheist, I'm not an agnostic, then you know that you're talking to a positive atheist, a gnostic atheist, somebody who has no doubt that there is no God. I hope this clarifies the confusion a little bit. And apart from one thing, actually, just one thing I want to actually clarify. What would people call themselves? Would they call themselves atheists, agnostics, or agnostic atheists? I think it's a matter of personal preference. Somebody who is an atheist, but who does not hold the belief that there is no God, has the choice. They can call themselves an atheist, an agnostic atheist, or just an agnostic, in which case they would have to realize that their atheism is implied. And I suppose, you could have a rough sort of guideline saying, like, if you think that the existence of Yahweh, for example, is something that you should take serious as a possibility, you should really call yourself an agnostic. If you don't think that that's really that likely, although you can't completely discount it, but you say like, well, it is likely, it's possible that there is a God, then maybe you should call yourself an agnostic atheist. If you hold like my sort of point in this spectrum, if you hold the position that any God that anybody, any human has ever worshipped in the history of humankind is a figment of the human imagination and therefore doesn't exist, even though you can't completely discount the possibility of something existing outside physical reality that might just possibly be construed as godlike, you're probably better off just calling yourself an atheist to avoid confusion. I hope this has helped clarify the sort of confusion and how you can get out of that a little bit. Let's see what people think. Thanks.